He's a Harvard MBA, has huge amounts of international exposure. His wife ran one of the biggest global market emerging funds with a lot of equity exposure in India. Jayant Sinha, the next Minister of State for Finance in all probability. We will of course know in about an hour and 20 minutes from now. I want to introduce you to our guests who are joining us in the Headlines Today studio this morning, starting with Javed Ansari, our executive editor. Also with us, senior writer at India Today magazine, Jyoti Malhotra, Manu Pabi, who covers defence for us. Now I want to speak to Javed first. Javed, what according to you is the message that the Prime Minister is sending out through this mega cabinet expansion? Because his original premise was minimum government, maximum governance. Now with this huge cabinet, questions will be asked about whether this is minimum government any longer.
You know, it's one thing to say things when you're in opposition, it's quite another when the reality bites home once you get into governance. He has to reconcile regional imbalances, social imbalances, and this is precisely what he's doing. There are several ministers who hold more than one portfolio, like Mr. Arun Jaitley. He holds corporate affairs, finance as well as defence. So obviously there will be a defence minister. There's Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad holding communications as well as law. There's very little in common, environment and INB, Mr. Javadekar. So these are things that he has to reconcile. There were states that went unrepresented. There's a loyalty quotient that's being rewarded. He is also keeping an eye on the polls. Jharkhand, Bihar, he's getting somebody like Giriraj Singh, Ram Kripal Yadav, who may have otherwise not made it, but because the Yadavs are banding together in Bihar, and therefore what you see is real politics rather than the idealism that Mr. Modi set out with before he became.
What's interesting, Jyoti, is that several of the ministers that we are speaking to still are not clear about what portfolio they are getting. We spoke to Ram Kripal Yadav just a short while ago. He says, yes, I know that I'm getting sworn in, but I honestly don't know, even when the cameras are not rolling, what portfolio I'm getting. So there's still a huge amount of secrecy around who's getting what.
I think it's more than secrecy. I think it's also control. Narendra Modi clearly wants to keep a very tight control on the new sort of bunch of ministers that will be sworn in. But I would like to also say that, you know, we have all been very critical of the fact that the BJP strength or the NDA strength has been very, very thin, very weak or small, shall we say. As Javed said, Arun Jaitley had 3 portfolios. So, but it's, in a sense, it's also interesting what Narendra Modi is doing. Just look at the probables that he's got on the table. There is likely to be JP Nadda, who is a very, very close confidant of Narendra Modi, recently inducted into the Rajya Sabha, was tipped to be party president, remember that. And then you have on the other hand, a gentleman called Vijay Sapla from Punjab, who is a Dalit leader. And I think we can also see in the coming years how the politics of Punjab will play out when elections are held in 2017. But this man is very interesting, Vijay Sapla. He's very much a Narendra Modi type figure. He was a very, very poor person. He sort of went to the Gulf and which is where he sort of made his money, and he's come back to do politics in Punjab. So I think it's interesting. On the one hand, you have Jayant Sinha, as you just said, this Harvard return, very posh, sort of MBA educated young man, or well, not so young man. And then you have somebody like Vijay Sapla, who is sort of really, you know, rags to a self-educated, very, very hardworking, and JP Nadda. So okay. Manohar Parrikar, of course, but those are the big names. But I think it's interesting that this sort of this wide array of people that he's able to bring into the government.
Let's focus for a moment, Manu, on the defence ministry. Manohar Parrikar coming in at a time when Arun Jaitley's clearly been overstretched. What are the key challenges that await Manohar Parrikar, and how are sources in South Block responding and reacting to Manohar Parrikar coming in as their new minister?
So there's a very positive reaction in South Block to at least a full-time defence minister. Jaitley, for his capabilities, could not really spend that much time, maybe 3-4 hours a day. So he could not really focus on the main challenges that were there. The first was, of course, modernization of the armed forces. We saw Jaitley try to do a lot of meetings, try to do a lot of projects, but key issues have to be dealt with, you know, red tapeism, bureaucracy, corruption. And these are Parrikar's key goal areas also. Sources close to Parrikar tell us that he's been studying the defense ministry for the past 1 month. Apparently he got feeders about a month ago that defense may be coming his way. So he has been talking to people, he is knowledgeable, and I think his focus right now will be to cut through the bureaucracy, make it simpler to do modernization.
He's known to be 100% honest with a high quotient of integrity. He's completely no nonsense. He's the first person who, when we interviewed him in Goa, before the Goa National Executive, said that Narendra Modi is the only one who can be the BJP's prime ministerial candidate. That interview, of course, led to a chain reaction, with Narendra Modi ultimately being elevated as the party's chairman of the campaign committee. Manohar Parrikar is also the person who called L.K. Advani rancid pickle when Advani was still the preeminent leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party. If there are few in the cabinet or few in the BJP RSS pantheon who can actually stand up and say what they have in their mind, one of them is Manohar Parrikar. And here he is speaking exclusively a short while before now to my colleague Kamaljit Sandhu, explaining what he expects to be able to deliver after he's taken over.
We have with us Mr. Manohar Parrikar. Sir, you're likely to give in the defence portfolio. It's a very important... You may not be aware, but sir, what do you really have in mind as far as agenda is concerned?
I will decide after it is given, and I think any person taking any responsibility requires some time to study exactly what is the status of the...
So it's one of the most high-profile portfolios. It's the top 5 ministries. But yes, there is a concern from Pakistan, from China. We have aggressive neighbours. How do you plan to deal with it?
No, if you ask me about aggressiveness, I have come from the smallest state where the oppositions are always aggressive. So I know what is aggressiveness. That is not the issue. I am not aware of my portfolio. Let the portfolio come. Give me 15 days at least to study it, and then I will respond.
Sir, you also from a coastal town, and we know there have been naval accidents. There has been a large concern. How do you plan to deal with that?
Any accident, whether it is naval or a civilian, is cause for concern. And when it happens with those people who have put up their life on the mat for the nation, the life going waste without actual requirement of the nation, it's more sad.
What about, you come from a small state, but you have larger plans. What do you have a plan for the nation? How do you plan to serve both the state as well as the country in a new...
Give me 15 days. That must be the time enough for me to understand the topic, understand the subject, understand the scope of it.
You went for a tea party. What was the food for thought? What did Mr. Modi share with you? What mantra?
Dokla, chai, और भी कुछ fruits भी थे.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. Manohar Parrikar, obviously getting that defence portfolio, not really announcing it yet. But this is the first exclusive interview of Manohar Parrikar. And he says he has big plans for the country. With camera person Anil, this is Kamaljit Sandhu in Delhi for Headlines Today.
Dhokla and chai. Javed, dhokla fast emerging as India's preeminent snack.
Yes, it's
the jalebis and the samosas are gone, especially the jalebis. The samosa is gone.
Yeah, tandoori chicken is now being replaced by dhokla.
Yes, have you developed a taste for it yet or not?
Not as yet.
Okay, here is Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, who's being sworn in the cabinet reshuffle that's happening in a short while from now, speaking to Headlines Today and detailing his plans once he takes over.
Narendra Modi's first big cabinet expansion, Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, a prominent Muslim face, making that cut. Sir, many congratulations to you. What is the mandate that you really have? What are your expectations? A lot of people do really speak to you a lot. You're very down to earth. You're very approachable. In that very sense, what is the larger plan that you have in mind?
देखिए, हमने हमेशा जब भी जो जिम्मेदारी पार्टी ने दी है, उस जिम्मेदारी को पूरे संकल्प के साथ, पूरे समर्पण के साथ, पूरी जिम्मेदारी के साथ उसको निभाया है. अभी भी जो पार्टी जिम्मेदारी देगी, जो प्रधानमंत्री जी जो जिम्मेदारी देंगे, उसको हम मजबूती के साथ, ईमानदारी के साथ, पूरे संकल्प के साथ निभाएंगे. और कोई जिम्मेदारी न छोटी होती है, न कोई बड़ी होती है.
चुनौतियों से लड़ते हुए जहाँ पहुँचे हैं और हर चुनौती से आगे निकलकर इसमें मोदी जी के जो विज़न है उसको आगे बढ़ाना है और देश के लिए जो काम करना है, ऐसा एक मन में है. और हर ज़रूरियात को पूरे करने के लिए उसमें कैसे करें.
The new ministers very happy that they've been given an opportunity. Several of these people, Javed, didn't really know for sure whether they'd make it. Take for example Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi. The one accusation against the Modi government has been that they haven't been including the minorities. Now by bringing in a Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, to what extent is Modi able to assuage the minority community that you've got representation within the cabinet as well?
I mean, the minorities had representation. There was Najma Heptullah. It's quite.
But they always felt it wasn't enough.
Yeah, so maybe he's tried to address that by getting Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, but you need to do a lot more than just tokenism. You know, minority concerns, minority fears. will not be assuaged just by getting in one Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi. It depends on what portfolio he gets, and also it depends on the general thrust of the government and the attitude of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
One of the things that is really heartwarming is the fact that you've now got Colonel Rajyavardhan Singh Rathore being sworn in as a minister. He is, in some senses, a marquee minister. You've got Nathan's gold medalist, one of India's true Olympic champions, being brought in, and there's several in Rajasthan who wouldn't want to see this MP from Jaipur rural being brought in. They'd rather that one of the stalwarts from the Rajasthan BJP be brought in. But Modi is sending a message when he brings someone like a Rathore in.
But it's more than that. One is, of course, his sporting credentials, and we hope that he will help in reinventing, revamping India's sports, I think. But there are also several other messages that Modi is doing. I think the fact that there has been absolutely no representation from Rajasthan. So in a sense, he will be the first person from Rajasthan. Remember that Vasundhara Raje, when the cabinet was being sworn in May earlier this year, and all 25 seats in Rajasthan went to the BJP, and there was nobody from Rajasthan. So Rajyavardhan Rathore is he that sort of state's representative?
Okay.
He's young. It helps to be young, Rahul. And unfortunately, I don't see the name of Anurag Thakur. I think he's lost out again. Now, we don't know what reason that is. Jayant Sinha, we heard earlier that Narendra Modi doesn't like dynasties, and therefore, Yashwant Sinha's son at the time in May did not get a berth. He's getting a berth today. But Anurag Thakur has been left out again. His father, Prem Dhumal, as you know, is an old BJP leader, a close friend of former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I'm wondering if there is some tension still there. But clearly Rajyavardhan Rathore is a good name, and I think he will be able to connect with the wide spectrum of people across the country.
Okay, Anurag Thakur, of course, very busy with the work that he does at the BCCI. He's also an important member of the Bharatiya Yuva Morcha, which is the BJP's youth wing. We're slipping into a break. I also want to introduce at this time Sunil Alag, corporate voice, joining us on this broadcast, sees and assesses this government very, very closely, and Sanjay Jha from the Congress party also joining us on this broadcast. We'll get their thoughts. Here are some of the new faces that will be brought into the cabinet. Giriraj Singh from Bihar, despite the controversy where cash was recovered from his residence, is being sworn in. Important leader from Bihar, big fan, big advocate of Narendra Modi. There's also Rajiv Pratap Rudy, who's coming in as Minister of State for Independent Charge. He confirmed so himself on Twitter. Then there is Manohar Parrikar, JP Nadda, who was a key part of Amit Shah's organizational team, but the Prime Minister needed his services, so Amit Shah had to let go of JP Nadda. They are some of the people who will be sworn in a short while from now. I want to go across to Sanjay Jha from the Congress party on what you're making of this cabinet reshuffle. Earlier, the Congress was complaining that the talent cupboard is rather bare. There are no technocrats. Where are the specialists? A lot of achievers, a lot of technocrats being brought into the cabinet now. Sanjay.
Rahul, it is the Prime Minister's prerogative to determine the size of his cabinet. The truth is that end of day, if you look at the track record of this government, which is nearing almost 6 months now, it has so far demonstrated a talent deficit and minimum governance, not minimum government. The truth is, look at the Supreme Court strictures that have come against this government over the last few months. I think it's absolutely unparalleled. Whether it was Supreme Court on black money, Supreme Court on coal block allocations, Supreme Court on clean Ganga, you have the Election Commission talking about the government's, ridiculous, U-turn on Sikh compensation to the victims of 1984. I think this government has been frankly fairly shambolic, and I'm not making it as a political opposition on a rhetoric spree. These are facts.
Okay.
The other part is, if you're talking governance, and this is how Mr. Modi won the elections, Rahul, the critical question, where is the Planning Commission in India? Where is the Lokpal? Where is the Chief Information Commissioner? Where is the CVC?
Okay, let me bring in a word also from Sunil Alag. We've now received information that Manohar Parrikar, JP Nadda, Suresh Prabhu and Bandaru Dattatreya, they will be the 4 cabinet ranked ministers who will be sworn in. Mr. Alag, what are you making of this mega cabinet reshuffle?
As far as I'm concerned, I think I was hearing the other panelists, not Sanjay Jha at the moment, when they were talking about what Mr. Modi actually plans. You see, even in Gujarat, if you go back when he became the chief minister for the first time, he takes about 3 or 4 months to really understand what kind of an environment is he working in, what the needs are before he expands his cabinet. And he's done exactly that right now. See, when he combined defense and finance, people have forgotten that defense minister was trying to get money for putting in arms and ammunition for the army. The finance minister was saying, I don't have the money. So he put the two together because he wanted a couple of orders to be put in. Now that the order has been put in, the finance and defense can be split again. People are not talking about the logic that this man follows, and they're all getting into the politics of it, saying he wants somebody from the Dalit, his first thing is, I want the young generation to come in, I want new ministers in, I want honest ministers in.
Okay.
Once he picks those, that's the first thing that he has done, whether it's Parikar or anyone, and all these new persons will come with a passion to perform. That is more important for him.
Well, we'll
Then
continue
about
talking to you,
20%
Sunil. I'm
chase
just slipping into a
politics.
very quick break. Interesting insights, though, and completely different opinion between Sunil Alagh and Sanjay Jha. We slip into